When Reba McEntire finally spoke about watching her ex-husband build a new life with someone she once called a friend, her words cut straight to the heart of what betrayal really feels like. The country music legend didn't explode in anger or seek revenge. Instead, she revealed something far more devastating: the quiet dignity of a woman who chose grace over fury, even when fury would have been completely justified. For 26 years, Reba and Narvel Blackstock weren't just married. They were an empire built on shared dreams, late-night conversations about the future, and the kind of partnership that made other couples jealous. When she took the stage night after night, he was the man making sure every detail was perfect. When she doubted herself, he was the voice telling her she could conquer anything. They built Reba's career together, raised children together, and survived tragedies that would have broken weaker bonds. Then it all shattered in 2015. Not gradually, not with warning signs anyone could see coming, but suddenly and completely. The divorce announcement shocked the country music world because if Reba and Narvel couldn't make it work, what hope did anyone else have? But the real shock was still coming. Within months of their divorce being finalized, Narvel was photographed with Laura Putty Stroud, a Nashville real estate agent who wasn't a stranger to Reba. She was someone who had been in their inner circle, someone who had shared family moments, someone who had smiled beside Reba at concerts and celebrations. The photo showed them looking comfortable together, like a couple who had been planning this relationship long before the world knew about it. Imagine discovering that while your 26-year marriage was falling apart, the person you trusted to manage your career and the woman you trusted as a friend were building something together. Imagine having to smile through interviews while reporters asked about your ex-husband's happiness with someone from your own social circle. Imagine having to protect your children from the gossip while processing your own heartbreak. Most people would have fought back publicly. Most would have hired publicists to plant stories or given explosive interviews revealing private details about what really happened behind closed doors. Most would have chosen war over silence. But Reba McEntire isn't like most people. When she finally broke her silence about watching Narvel move on with Laura, what she revealed showed exactly why she became country music royalty and why her response to betrayal became a masterclass in handling heartbreak. To understand why Reba's response was so extraordinary, you have to understand what Narvel Blackstock meant to her life long before he became the man who broke her heart. Their story began in 1980 when Narvel joined her touring band as a steel guitar player. Reba was still climbing toward the stardom that seemed inevitable but hadn't quite arrived yet. Narvel was a musician with management instincts and a vision for what her career could become. What started as a professional relationship built slowly into something deeper. Narvel wasn't just another band member collecting a paycheck. He was the person who stayed after shows to discuss what worked and what didn't. He was the one suggesting changes that made her performances stronger. He was thinking about her career even when she wasn't, planning moves that would position her for bigger opportunities. By the mid-1980s, as Reba's career exploded into genuine superstardom, Narvel had transitioned from band member to manager. He wasn't just booking shows anymore. He was architecting the empire that would make Reba one of country music's most powerful figures. They worked 18-hour days together, traveled constantly together, and made decisions that shaped not just her music but her entire public persona. When they married in 1989 on a boat in Lake Tahoe, it felt like the natural evolution of a partnership that had already changed both their lives. Narvel brought 3 children from his previous marriage into their family, and Reba embraced her role as stepmother with the same intensity she brought to everything else. When their son Shelby was born, they weren't just husband and wife anymore. They were business partners, co-parents, and best friends managing one of country music's biggest careers. For over 2 decades, their personal and professional lives were so intertwined that separating them seemed impossible. Narvel knew Reba's schedule better than she did. He knew which songs made her emotional to perform and which interviews would push her past her comfort zone. He knew when she needed encouragement and when she needed space. They weren't just married. They were completely enmeshed in ways that made their eventual separation feel like dismantling a machine that had been running perfectly for decades. But machines break down, even perfect ones. And when theirs finally stopped working, the pieces scattered in ways that nobody could have predicted. The woman who would pick up one of those pieces was someone who had been watching their machine operate from the inside for years. Laura Putty Stroud wasn't some random woman Narvel met after the divorce. She was someone who had been part of Reba's world for years, attending family events, celebrating career milestones, and building what seemed like a genuine friendship. In 2014, just months before the divorce announcement, Reba and Laura had attended a Katy Perry concert together, laughing and posing for photos in colorful wigs like two friends enjoying a girls' night out. Laura had photographed Shelby at racing events, with Reba publicly thanking her for capturing those special moments. When reports surfaced in January 2016 that Narvel was dating Laura, the timeline raised uncomfortable questions. How long had this been developing? Were there signs Reba had missed while she was fighting to save her marriage? Had she been confiding her marital struggles to someone who was becoming emotionally involved with her husband? The country music world held its breath, waiting for Reba to explode. Entertainment reporters prepared for the kind of messy public battle that sells magazines and generates headlines. Everyone expected fury, accusations, and the kind of scorched-earth revelations that would destroy reputations and end careers. Instead, Reba chose silence that spoke louder than any accusation could have. When she finally addressed the situation publicly, her words were carefully chosen but devastatingly honest. She admitted that the divorce wasn't her choice, revealing that she would have continued fighting for the marriage even when Narvel had already given up. She talked about the difficulty of adjusting to life alone after decades of sharing every decision with someone else. But when pressed about Narvel's new relationship, Reba's response revealed the depth of her character. She refused to attack Laura personally or question the timeline of their romance. Instead, she said something that cut deeper than any accusation could have. She acknowledged that life was too short for people to stay in situations that make them unhappy, even when their leaving devastates someone else. That response wasn't weakness disguised as strength. It was strength so complete that it didn't need to prove itself through destruction. Reba was essentially saying that she understood why Narvel left and why he chose Laura, even though that understanding came at the cost of her own happiness. The most heartbreaking part wasn't her public statements. It was what she revealed about the private conversations she'd had with herself, working through the pain of watching someone she loved build happiness with someone she had trusted. She described having to learn who she was without Narvel, not just as a woman, but as an artist whose entire career had been shaped by his vision. What made Reba's situation even more complex was that divorce didn't mean she could simply walk away from the Blackstock family. She wasn't just losing a husband. She was potentially losing relationships with children she had helped raise for decades. Narvel's son Brandon was married to Kelly Clarkson, making family gatherings a delicate dance of maintaining connections while processing personal pain. Her stepchildren had been part of her life for over 20 years. Walking away would have meant abandoning relationships that mattered deeply to her. The country music industry watched nervously as one of its most beloved figures navigated this personal crisis. Reba's response could have damaged careers, ended business relationships, and created lasting divisions within Nashville's tight-knit community. Laura Stroud worked in Nashville real estate, meaning she was connected to the same circles that supported Reba's career. A public attack could have destroyed Laura's business and divided their mutual friends into warring camps. Instead, Reba chose a path that surprised everyone who knew how devastated she was privately. Friends close to the situation revealed that she was struggling far more than her public statements suggested. The woman who had survived the death of her band members in a plane crash, rebuilt her career multiple times, and handled decades of public scrutiny was facing the kind of personal betrayal that breaks people. Yet when she appeared on television or granted interviews, she maintained her composure with almost supernatural control. She talked about learning to make decisions alone after decades of shared choices. She discussed the strange experience of performing songs that Narvel had helped select, knowing he was building new memories with someone else. She admitted to moments of loneliness that felt overwhelming but refused to let that loneliness turn into bitterness. Behind the scenes, industry insiders reported that Reba was quietly dealing with the practical complications of disentangling a business partnership from a marriage. Narvel had managed not just her career but her finances, her scheduling, and her strategic planning. Finding new representation meant admitting to strangers that her personal life was affecting her professional decisions in ways that could have made her vulnerable. The most telling detail came from people who worked closely with Reba during this period. They described a woman who would arrive at photo shoots or recording sessions with perfect makeup and a professional smile, then sit quietly in her car afterward, processing emotions she couldn't afford to show publicly. She was protecting everyone around her from the full weight of her pain while slowly rebuilding an identity that had been intertwined with someone else for most of her adult life. Years later, Reba's choice to handle her heartbreak with grace rather than warfare proved to be more powerful than any revenge could have been. While other celebrity divorces became cautionary tales about public destruction, Reba's response became a blueprint for surviving betrayal without losing yourself in the process. She didn't just protect her reputation. She protected her relationships with Narvel's children, her standing in Nashville's community, and most importantly, her own integrity. The decision to stay silent about the painful details wasn't weakness. It was a strategic choice that preserved her power while others expected her to give it away through angry outbursts. By refusing to play the victim publicly, she maintained control over her narrative in ways that explosive revelations never could have achieved. She understood something that many people learn too late: dignity is a choice that compounds over time, while drama provides temporary satisfaction but lasting damage. Reba's handling of the situation also revealed something profound about the nature of love itself. True love doesn't disappear when someone betrays it. It transforms into something different but doesn't vanish entirely. Her ability to wish Narvel well, even while processing her own pain, demonstrated emotional maturity that few people achieve even after decades of life experience. The country music legend's response taught an entire generation of women that strength doesn't always look like fighting back. Sometimes it looks like protecting what matters most, even when protecting it requires absorbing pain that feels unbearable. She chose to preserve family relationships over personal vindication, professional reputation over emotional release, and long-term peace over short-term satisfaction. Perhaps the most remarkable aspect of Reba's journey through this crisis was how she used it to discover who she was as an individual rather than half of a partnership. For the first time in decades, she was making decisions without considering someone else's opinion first. She was choosing songs, planning tours, and building relationships based entirely on her own instincts. When Reba McEntire broke her silence about watching her ex-husband build a new life with someone from her inner circle, she didn't reveal secrets or assign blame. She revealed something far more powerful: a woman who understood that how you handle betrayal defines your character more than the betrayal itself ever could. Her quiet strength in the face of public heartbreak became the most compelling chapter in a career filled with extraordinary moments, proving that sometimes the most devastating response to being hurt is refusing to hurt others in return.